A lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff in this movie. So I don't understand the hate. Not here to convince anybody. I'm just here to, express my delight in the film. I think that it's very, very easy to hate, and it's easy to express your disdain for something. And it's much more of a challenge to articulate how much you appreciate something. What's good, everybody? Welcome to Home Use. Thank you for clicking that thumbnail. My name is Corey. Today we're going to be discussing Captain America: Brave New World, and we're doing the spoiler review. Use the chapters in the description. My plan is to do the likes and the dislikes and just talk in really, really specific detail about what I enjoyed and what I did not enjoy. So initially I said there were two big negatives, and those negatives were the way the movie looked, like the way it was shot and edited, as well as the dialogue throughout. So while there's not much to say in regards to the dialogue, I do want to talk extensively about that visuals category and how the movie looked. So I gotta start with the first thing, and that is the very first fight scene was a horrible fight scene. It was very much over edited, cut up in a way that it made it look very unappealing. If you watch the entire movie, you'll notice that even later on, there's a fight scene that takes place in a hallway. In the MCU, when it's television, normally does very good with hallway fight scenes. They do not do that here. This hallway fight scene, it really wasn't bad, but just the potential that I could see in the buildup. You have two opponents, kind of fighting their way towards each other through a large amount of foes. It's like, this could be shot in a very interesting way. I think about Guardians 3, and I also think about all the different Daredevil scenes that were hallway fight scenes, one take. These actors commit so much time to learning this choreography. Why don't we show it in a wide shot without all the cuts so we can see all the different movements that they've learned and mastered and got the timing down perfectly? And they just didn't do that with the fight scenes here. I think specifically to the one in the beginning, and then also that hallway fight scene. The only other visual thing that I will bring up would be the speech that he makes at the end to bring down Red Hulk. Like, he kind of brings him back to his senses. And while the speech itself was fine, and it made sense that he referenced Betty and then, you got the cherry blossoms and all that stuff, the big problem I had with it was the lighting of that scene. The fact that you have other actors in the background that are part of something, like they aren't just random extras, but they are like kind of faceless and just standing there in the back of the shot. Everybody's lit in a very weird way. It's very different from what we see once the Red Hulk shrinks back down into Thunderbolt Ross. And it's like, I didn't understand why they chose to light him that way. Clearly it was a reshoot and kind of something they tacked on at the end. They made a change and a pivot, and I think it was a proper way to end the movie. I just didn't like the way it looked at all. Staying on the topic of dislikes, I'm not gonna say I really disliked, but seeing Harrison Ford instead of William Hurt was weird to me. I'm not gonna say that that's a total knock on the film, because William Hurt passed away and they had a big role for him in this movie, so you definitely have to do something to keep that role moving forward where they were in production when he passed away. But I think they would have done better with a lesser known older white man, or just a different person, because Harrison Ford is, to me, a large departure, like a huge departure from what we saw in William Hurt in all his appearances in the MCU. I think about him in Black Widow, even though it was a very small part. Think about him in Civil War. Think about him all the way back in the 2008 Incredible Hulk film. It's like, this is too far away from what I know. But again, circumstances, I understand. Same thing I think about with Black Panther 2. Like, hey, you did what you could with what you had based on the circumstances. The only other negative, the only other dislike that I will talk about and really complain about is the fact that we have that little Black Widow character in this movie. Now listen, normally I'm not one of those people who fuss when they see women doing action in movies, but it's really egregious the size of this woman that they put in this movie. Like, she looks like she's 5'3", 95 pounds. And she's out here just using regular hands and beating up Army Rangers and like people who are in the military. And it just doesn't make sense that she, a person that size, can go up without anything special and just beat all these men. You know what I would prefer? I would really like it if they did this. I would like it if they took every like undersized female and put them in an action scene. I would love it if they made them into tacticians. Like, take these women and make them break bones on every opponent they face that's bigger than them. That way, in the minds of the audience, you could see, one, the skill that supposedly comes with being a Black Widow, but also you get to see these women level the playing field in live action. You get to see she walks up to an opponent and, you know, your knee does this and she kick him in his knee and his knee does that. It's like your leg flopping out here. That makes sense for any character to do that's undersized in a fight. Like just taking people out, snapping thumbs, breaking wrists, hyperextending elbows and knees and ankles. That type of stuff would make these characters 10 times more believable and something that wouldn't bother me when I saw it on screen. But seeing this character bothered me because I'm looking at it and it just doesn't make a lot of sense for her to be doing what she's doing in this movie. Now that didn't break the movie for me, but it is something I noticed. And then, you know, certain scenes where she's walking next to Sam, it's like, yo, the size disparity is crazy here. And we supposed to just go with the fact that she helped clear a hallway full of military trained men. Like it's very strange. Now let's move it along to what I liked. I really liked a lot from this movie. First things first, the fact that Sam Wilson is a Black Captain America at the time that we're living in 2025, really cool. And they didn't beat you over the head with that stuff, but they did include visuals that kind of reinforce the idea of, yes, you're Black and yes, you're Captain America, but there are things that you still have to do and have to deal with. It didn't feel heavy-handed and it just felt right when some of those moments came up. One moment that came up is Isaiah being arrested. The fact that he's a Black man and he's being arrested on film. You have one Black man on this side of the law, you have another Black man on the other side of the law. He's clinging to his suit like that's the only thing that I have that's precious memory of my wife and is really meaningful to me and is being disregarded. And it's like, they didn't go too far, but me being who I am, I saw it and I thought to myself, like, this is a powerful moment to see displayed in this movie. I look at the prison visit. The prison visit had really good camera work. The fact that during the dialogue, you got these eerie shots of Isaiah looking straight into the camera. Same thing with Sam, eerie looking shots. The depression that was on Isaiah's face, looking into the camera. And I thought about it and it made me think there was another good dialogue scene in the beginning of the movie between Sam and one of the military men who later on gets killed by the leader. And when you look at that, it's like, yo, y'all were creative in the dialogue scenes when shooting it. Why didn't you take that same approach with the editing of the action? But that point aside, I liked the prison visit because it's something that we see come up over and over again in much of Black cinema. You'll see a character get arrested and then he has to tell his family members like, hey, don't come see me here. I don't want you to see me like this. You get a small exchange like that. Cool that it's included here. The only real time that Sam acknowledges, you know, the push to be accepted is at the end of the film. And it's cool because you've already accomplished the big feats. You know, you stopped this huge threat in this Red Hulk. It's also saved America from going to war with Japan, which I want to talk about quite a bit. He mentions in that conversation, he mentions having to try hard and having to work twice as hard. And that's just a thing that, you know, I'm a 40-year-old Black man. If you're in that age range, you've heard that growing up and it's a real thing. And again, they don't beat you over the head with it. If you're an audience member that doesn't identify with that group or identify with that level of struggle, it's not going to turn you off. But it is very cool that it's a truth that gets acknowledged in a film that is, you know, got a Hulk, a big raid monster in it, you know, and people with shields that defy physics. It's like all that stuff is cool fantasy elements, but we do get a touch of reality and it's not overdone. One of the things that I enjoyed the most when talking about Sam and Sam Wilson's Captain America is the fact that they don't go crazy with the super soldier serum. The idea that Sam acknowledges that, hey, I kind of need this. I'm fighting an uphill battle. Everybody else is special and I'm not. And, you know, Bucky kind of pumps him up. And that was a nice little cameo to have Bucky in there as well. But the idea that he acknowledges like, hey, I kind of need this. And then Bucky tells him like, hey, you're special because these things, not because of the serum. And then you get to the end and he's got broken ribs and his mask's been all tore up and his arm is dangling. And it's like, full of shit. I need that serum. I need the juice to like really be in the fight. And he survives still. So that makes his character worthy of, you know, the title of Captain America, amongst other things. It's just really cool. You know, online, they have so many commentaries about Sam shouldn't even be able to survive anything dealing with the Red Hulk. And it's like, no, you see the technology saved him along with just plain old luck is really what, you know, got him through this. And the idea of, hey, he acknowledges I shouldn't be able to fight these fights, but I am, and I'm going forward anyway. Actually, it kind of makes him a good candidate to die in the future. Hopefully not soon at least, but good candidate to bite the big one. Thing I like the most, I think I'm gonna probably put it in the thumbnail. Haven't made that image yet, but the thing that I like the most about this movie is the fact that they finally addressed the Celestial coming out of the ocean. I don't watch much marketing. I do the YouTube thing, and so I watch one trailer, I'll react to that trailer, I'll mark down when the movie's coming out on my little calendar, and then that's it. I don't watch any other promotional imagery. So I didn't know going into this that they were doing adamantium. I didn't know going into this that Celestial Island was going to be one of the biggest plot points of the movie and something that they revolved the entire film around. So seeing that from the beginning, I was like, yo, they finally addressing this. And then it became a much bigger thing. I was like, yo, they're finally addressing this. I'm so pleased with the fact that they are finally doing this. And to me, it's very fitting because it's a movie that overall I feel like moves the story of the MCU along. We introducing new elements. We have a way to kind of include mutants, which I'm gonna touch on in a second. Multiversal hints being dropped in the post-credit scenes. It's like, this is the time when you address such a huge world-building thing like the Celestial hidden in the earth. It's like, this is great that is being included. Talking about mutants, there's 2 points that I want to talk about that I really loved here. I love the fact that Japan was the nation that was closely connected to the study of adamantium. I'm a super nerd, y'all. I have comics, hundreds of comics. And in those comics, I have old Wolverine stuff, like what he did, the War Journals with him and the Punisher. You have Wolverine in Japan with the eye patch. I have those comics in my possession, or in my father's possession. And when I look at those comics and I see Japan being a factor, my mind went straight to, yo, they can now do Silver Samurai. They can now do Lady Deathstrike, because we have adamantium being studied by that specific nation. It just really got my wheels turning because it's the espionage aspect of it. Like, America stole adamantium, Japan found it first. Japan might be further along. Again, we're planting seeds for the idea of the United States stealing some of their research or stealing some of their adamantium, and then Canada doing it, and then creating Weapon X, and we might get young versions of all the X-Men instead of trying to port them in from the Fox universe. They might show up in Secret Wars or something like that, but we can start them fresh here in this version of the MCU, Earth 616, and we can do that on screen with a young Wolverine who just kind of comes out of the blue. He didn't go through World War II and the Civil War and all that stuff. He's just a new young person with bone claws, and then he gets the adamantium. And at the same time, on the other side of the planet, Japan has Lady Deathstrike and Silver Samurai, and that scientist who started all those experiments. That's really, really cool to me. I really enjoy the fact that they plant those seeds there for the comic book nerds such as myself. And the last thing that I really, really enjoyed, that I really feel like is being underappreciated, not hearing anybody talk about it, how cold was the leader? We got a really small nugget of Samuel Stearns turning into the leader in 2008 when Edward Norton was still a part of the MCU, like so long ago. And now we get to see that paid off with the idea that he's been behind the scenes the entirety of the MCU, helping out Thunderbolt Ross under the guise of possibly getting out and getting some freedom, only to find out that he's been played this whole time and they're gonna keep me locked up. And he developed this huge plan, and this plan works. He is a less violent version of Killmonger, like a guy who was actually right for being upset, and a guy who actually accomplished the mission that he set out to accomplish. Like, he got Thunderbolt Ross out the paint. It's like, yo, this guy is good. I really like the villain here. He is not a throwaway. He is someone who deserves to be back on screen, as well as deserves to be as angry as he was and as calculated as he was, because his superpower was his mind. And it wasn't something that's like the older MCU movies where you see the villain is a copy of the hero. So you have Iron Man and Ironmonger. Like, it's none of that. We have a true threat, and his threat is not in his physical presence, but in the fact that he can predict so much and he is so knowledgeable of all these things. I liked it. I really liked it. Listening to people criticize the movie, I thought it's Cap versus Red Hulk, and that's the movie. No one talked about the leader. No one has been talking about how good of a performance that was. I think his CGI was a little bit off in certain scenes or certain shots, but man, I really thought this villain was a good villain, which makes the movie a good movie. Like, I felt for that guy, the fact that I've been locked in a cage and I've been used for 15, 16 years. Like, that's a great motivating factor, especially when he did nothing wrong. Like, I really liked it. I didn't think that there was a problem with the Samuel Stearns leader character. Very good stuff there. And I also like his post-credit scene. The idea that he doesn't have the time stone, but he can see into possibilities because he has this very far advanced brain. And I just really enjoyed it. I thought that it was well done. It laid the seeds for more multiverse stuff to come. They laid the seeds for more Avengers teams to come down the line. A lot of good stuff in this movie. So I don't understand the hate. Not here to convince anybody. I'm just here to, express my delight in the film. I think that it's very, very easy to hate, and it's easy to express your disdain for something. And it's much more of a challenge to articulate how much you appreciate something. And so I appreciated this film. I like the film. I will continue to speak very well about the film and retweet and repost every positive thing I hear about it, because I think it's a very, very good, strong, solid 7 out of 10. And so those are my thoughts, pretty much all of them. Let me know what was your favorite part, because I think my favorite part was the fact that they finally addressed that Celestial and used it to plant lots of seeds in a really smart way and move the MCU forward in a really smart way. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And that's all I got for this one, y'all. Enjoy yourself, guard your heart, and go watch something good.